Yaakov, I always look at a few newspapers from Eretz Yisrael. I looked at hakoras. I never looked at it, but I looked at it. The headline was today. It was very good chop. They said Netanyahu, Lapid, and Aaron Judge are all looking to get 61.
That's very good.
Yeah, it's very good.
When are the elections?
I think after Yontif.
And I think this is on Roger Maris's birthday.
When? Today is?
I think yesterday or today, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Wow, look at that.
Happy birthday.
So you said 61.
Whatever. Talk about Shara Rutzen doing what Hashem wants. I can't understand. Like, they put these home run numbers of all these guys. They're not even in the Hall of Fame because they're drugged up. And then why are they even in the conversation that they beat 61? He's the first legitimate guy that might beat 61, no?
Right. Yes.
I don't understand. Okay, whatever.
David,
okay,
that's why I called you today. I wanted to tell you that line.
I'm sorry I missed it.
That's why I called you.
Okay, so we're up to, I think, 3 lines up from the bottom, right? Is that what we got up to? Yeah, fine. Oh, so one last hakoras. So we said that Mar Ukva gave away half his money when he was dying. So I think some place can want to say, I didn't have time to check, but that they say even a person dying should not give more than half his money away. Otherwise, why didn't he give it all away? Right? He only gave half. Right? So they want to say from this Maisa, nobody should give more than half even when they're dying. Okay.
Can I ask one stupid question? I know.
Let's get the night started.
We're talking about the home run record, not the consecutive game streak.
Go ahead.
I know we answered yesterday that he can give more than a chaimish because he was dying. Hashem can give him a refuah and then he's not dying.
So that's a whole shaila of a shchiv meira. We had that a bunch of blood ago, I think. Right? Did we have it a bunch of blood ago? Shchiv meira. If he's dying and then he gets better. So is that considered really like a matana or is it not? Does he get? Is it no backseas or does he get? Yeah, it's a whole sugi. Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, if he has a miraculous recovery, it doesn't go to them because we assume he did it under duress, depending on how he said it, depending on the phrases that he uses.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so Rabbi Abba have a tzar zuzi. Another story that I don't understand. Rabbi Abba wrapped money in his sudar, in his scarf, and he put the scarf behind him. Umamtzi nafshe lebei aniyim, and he walked near the aniyim so that they'll be able to just take the money out of his scarf. Meaning he put it behind him. Right? I'm assuming it's sort of like he took, you wear a sweater or a sweatshirt with a hood. You put the hood behind you and you leave the money in there and then you go walking through, where all the collectors are and they take money out. They don't see you. Right? And then that's a good way to give tzedaka without anybody knowing. Umatzli ene, and then he would make his eyes crooked. I don't know what this means. Miramai from people that are stealing. Meaning he kept his eye out to see if people that were not worthy of taking tzedakah would be stealing from him. I don't know. He must have had, I don't know how he did this, that he could keep his eye out for crooks, but he didn't see which aniyim collected from him. I have no idea physically how he did that, but okay, that's what he did. Fine. Rab Chanina avahu anya. Rab Chanina, there was an ani by Rab Chanina to have a ragul l'shturele arba zuzi kol ma'ali Shabbos. He would send him 4 zuz every erev Shabbos. One Friday, he sent it with his wife. She came back to him and said he doesn't need my chazis. What do you see over there that you think that he doesn't need tzedakah? I heard that they were telling him, but man at the sayid, what are you eating? On Tamar Aleph now. So betale kesef and betale zav. Are you eating on silver tablecloths or are you eating on gold tablecloths? So meaning the wife, when she went to bring the tzedakah, heard somebody yell out in the house, are we using gold or silver tablecloths? Now that's obviously very expensive. So therefore she said they don't need tzedakah. Omar, so what did he say? Hainu damr, but before we go weiter, yesterday's Gemara, Mar Ukva's son did the same thing. And he came home and he said, these guys don't need tzedakah. They're sprinkling wine all over the place. Right? So it must be that they're wealthy if they're sprinkling wine all over the place. And he said, no, must be they need even more money because they have such a high standard of living. That's not what happened here. Here he said, Amar Hainu Damar Rebbe Elazar. This is what Rebbe Elazar said. Let's be makir toiv to liars. Because if not for the liars, we would do a chet every single day by not giving tzedakah to every poor person. The Tani Rabbi Chia bar Rabbi Difti Rabbi Shu ben Karcha Aimer Kol Amaylam Edav Min Tzedakah. Anybody who keeps his eyes hidden from tzedakah, Kilu Oiver of Yitzchakavim, it's as if he did avoda Zara. Why? Because be careful that you do something in your heart. B'lial is a lashon of avoda Zara. Uksiv Hasam Yatzu Nashim B'nei B'lial, and the people went out to try and get the city to do avoda Zara. Malal and avoda Kechavim, just like there's avoda Kechavim, Mafkan avoda Kechavim, so it's avoda Kechavim. So therefore, you see that you are not allowed to hold yourself back from giving tzedakah, right? So what did he answer? He says, yes, they are crooks, so let's stop giving them tzedakah, but we have to be makir toiv to people that are ganovim that take tzedakah anyways, because like this, we have a justification why we don't give tzedakah to every guy that comes along, because really you have to give tzedakah to anybody that comes along, right? But we don't, because you say, oh, he's not trustworthy, so I'm not giving it. Okay, so therefore, even when we botch it and we don't end up giving to somebody who needs, so you have to, so at least now you have an excuse why you didn't give. For me personally, it used to be easy not to give because I don't have cash. Now these guys all come with credit card machines, right? And I have it on my watch. I have the Apple Watch, which has the credit card. You don't have to take out your wallet. There's no excuse that it's even disturbing your davening, because all you do is press one button and hold it up to the machine, and that's it. They got their tzedakah, right? But you don't want to give them a quarter, because then it's going to cost them more to take the quarter, because then what they're going to make, you're actually going to make them lose money. So then you have to give them more. I don't know. It's a big shiloh. What do we do nowadays when you have these collectors, and you really have to give each one? It's not so pashut what are excuses for it. But okay.
Can you daven at home?
What are excuses for not giving them?
Yeah. Naftali, you
Yes,
should
it-
have home.
Naftali, by the way, you get it back now. You can have it at home.
Tzedaka, why can't you kind of that
Yeah.
there's that you have monies that you give monies to other places, and and these places, let's say there are hierarchies that stuck,
We're talking about
Jacob, you have to give every.
we're talking about poor people. We're not talking about the guy collecting. Where's Zeb? Is he on?
No,
we're not talking about guys collecting for
There's still
yeshivas.
hierarchies in
What?
tzedakah. I'm saying if you have a choice between giving tzedakah to one person over another person, right? There are hierarchies, correct?
Jacob, I understand. If you have to give every person, what's the pshat purim time of kol ha-poishut yad? Then you have to give.
Oh, very good. So pshat and kol ha-poishut yad by Purim is that you don't check into them. Kol ha-poishut yad is not pshat you have to give every guy. Once you run out of money, you run out of money. That's
I'm gonna
not.
check-
Kol
I'm gonna
ha-poishut
check-
yad by kol ha-poishut yad means on Purim you don't check them out. During the year you check them out.
How am I
If
checking
you
a guy
don't-
during davening?
You're right. So that's a problem. So that's a heter. The middle of davening, your Rabanan, we discussed this a lot, right? You're not mechuyev to stop your davening to give a guy tzedakah. As a matter of fact, it's probably the wrong thing for him to do to come disturb.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a true neighbor. It's very makbid that they don't come into.
But that's
Could
probably
one make
wrong.
their own rules saying if somebody comes in the middle of davening, I'm not giving anyone who comes in the middle of davening?
As far as I know, 100% yes, because he's disturbing your davening. Now you better daven well if you have that excuse. But I'm saying, yes, you can make that excuse. You're not mechuyev to. I'm saying you're not mechuyev.
You don't need to check any. You don't need to check anyway. They have usually a piece of paper that I'm saying you're not doing your research then during davening.
Correct. Yeah, it's not clear exactly when.
Who said those pieces of paper mean anything?
But I'm just saying.
That's
I mean,
another
half
issue.
the work is done already.
What work? You have no idea what these people are. They come with a piece of paper. I can.
Yeah.
Naftali, I have a bridge to sell you.
You know what? How much is it?
Listen, most
Come
people
during
are
davening
legit.
and Naftali will
I'll
spy
bring
it.
you my machine so you can swipe your card.
Most people are legit. That's a bottom line. Most people are legit. But anyways, okay, but that is the whole sugi. Now, what's interesting, the top Tosis asks, how come in the previous story he said, "Oh, they must have such a high standard of living. We got to give them extra. We got to give them extra money." And here he said, "Oh, they have gold and silver tablecloths, so then they must be wealthy." So Tosis says, the reason why he changed here is, it's not, you're not considered a mafunik. I don't know how Tosis knows this, but you're not considered a mafunik to have silver tablecloths and gold tablecloths. That's not a mafunik. A mafunik, if somebody has the aromas of wine all over his house, then that means he needs it as part of it. But to have silver tablecloths and gold tablecloths, Tosis thinks that's not.
To steer against the whole shit. To steer against the whole shit of question.
Well, that's stam tablecloths. That's plastic. Tosis is not handling plastic tablecloths. Right? It's gold.
I think
Anyway.
I think the Mashal discusses stacking versus not stacking.
Very good. Very good.
Akira
Anyway,
Bit-
okay. Yeah, so let's see weiter. So Ton Rabanan, about 10 lines down from the top on Samach Ches Amud Aleph. Ton Rabanan, Hamasama is Einoi. Imagine this: a guy makes himself blind, or he makes himself look like he's blind, right? I mean, he's walking around like as if he's blind. And he makes his stomach look blown up. And he makes it look like his leg is shrunk or shriveled up or whatever it is. He's not going to be nifted from the world until that actually happens to him. Now, is this the source for those people that say don't use crutches because it's ayin hara? Is this Gemara the source of that?
Probably, yeah. The people who get upset by the Purim costumes that are like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because the Gemara doesn't say why he's dressing up. The assumption is he's dressing up in order to collect tzedaka, because this Gemara is in the middle of tzedaka. The Gemara doesn't say it, right? No, Rashi doesn't say it either. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe that's a source. I mean, clearly it means that he's doing it in order to collect tzedaka, but it does not say it in the Gemara. Okay.
Maybe the Makar is al tiftach pella something. Don't give the something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But maybe that's where this Gemara is coming from. But not. The pashtus is the Gemara is saying that he's doing it. You want to act like you're an ani, that you're going to collect money for this? I'll show you. Correct. But I'm saying Rashi doesn't say it. So obviously, there's Mefarshim that say it, but Rashi, it's interesting that Rashi doesn't say it, unless it was so pashut that Rashi didn't need to say it. Yeah. Well, it ain't pashut for me. So, fine. Hamakabel tzedaka. Vein tzarich lekach. If somebody accepts tzedaka and he doesn't need it, then you're going to need tzedaka. If you collect tzedaka but you don't need it, then you're not allowed to. Now, this comes up with another case. Somebody asked me last week. He doesn't need the money, but he's learning in a kollel. The kollel wants to give him money. Is that called taking tzedakah, or is that not taking tzedakah?
No, he's
Meaning-
getting paid to learn. What do you
Good.
mean?
Listen, it ain't major money. It ain't major money that he's getting, right? And people are giving their meiser money to the koil. So the question is, how do you look at koil? Is it tzedaka for aniyim, or is it no? You're coming to sit in this marriage. We're giving you a stipend.
Stipend? No.
But if you say that, then fine, you can take it. But if you say no, you're taking stamazoi, it's a shaila how you're allowed to take money to learn, or to be a rebbe, or to be a rashiva, anything. That's
No,
really
a person who wants to give it plain out tzedaka does the yisachas voln with somebody private.
So is there anything wrong with doing yisachas voln?
What do you mean?
Taking
Anything
money, if
wrong?
you don't need it. Let's say a guy doesn't need it. So he doesn't need it, but he wants to do yisachas voln anyways. You could do it.
Well, it's a transaction. Sure, why not?
I'm saying you're giving away your Torah. You're giving away your Torah for no reason.
Nobody's giving away anything here. They're a partner in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not posh.
If you don't need
Not
it, if you
everybody
don't
looks
need
at
it,
like
why
that.
would you take a partner?
It's Yaakov. If you want,
Right.
Why would you
Nitzi,
give away
give
every other
money.
taisvis for $200 if you don't need the $200?
I don't know.
Correct.
Yisachar did it. Yisachar did it with Zvulun. Something. I don't know what happened there.
Yisachar would probably not be mutter if he doesn't need the money. The question is if a stipend is mutter.
Yisachar's Zvulun, in a real way, is if he totally supports him and he
Right.
totally does other things. That's the right way. There's over the years they did the Yisachar's Zvulun.
Yisachar Zvulun we're talking about.
Right,
Yisachar
okay.
It's not a Yisachar Zvulun.
I understand, but if Yisachar was a millionaire, it doesn't mean that you can't. That's not to give him. You can't give tzedaka money for that, right?
That might be true, but it's nothing to do with Zvulun. If I cared, if anything, it's Yaakov. If the guy, if the guy who's learning is making money, a lot of money during the day, and he's on a night seder call, for example, wouldn't they be mechuyev to pay him more, not less?
What do you mean more?
The whole heter is he paying for his time. His time is worth a lot more because he could be doing something else. Well, the rest of the day he's making.
So you know what? Start a new koil that you give Ruby Schroen $5,000 a night to sit in koil. You could collect for that. You think my son-in-law has a hard job? You collect for that koil cash.
I don't know what.
Well, I don't know which one will come first. That or the Rolls Royce for the guy who lost his money.
You're asking. You're saying. You mean if a guy doesn't need it, so maybe the chayri shouldn't be considered tzedakah?
That's the question. Yeah,
The shaila is if you're giving him, is that called tzedakah or is it called a stipend?
I don't know. It's a shaila. What about a guy who opens a yeshiva who's very wealthy, and he takes his salary?
Yeah.
So okay.
Well, you shouldn't take a salary. You mean? What about if a guy who works for a place who's rich? So he shouldn't take a salary either.
No, that's who you did work for somebody. What time?
What do you mean?
It's different, Reb Zev. It's different because the guy that the Rashiv is getting money from, he's coming to me and you for tzedakah. We're giving meiser. That's where the question comes from.
The money they're giving.
Okay, meiser.
I think
I'm
the
giving
money.
my meiser and it's going to somebody that doesn't need it.
All right,
that's
Sean,
the question.
this is not even the major issue. The next line is the major issue. Okay, Tanan Hassam. The major issue in Hilchot Tzedakah is the next line. Tanan Hassam Ein Mechayven Oisel Limkar as Beisai Ves Klei Tashmisha. We don't require the ani to sell his house or any of his utensils in order before he collects money. So, guys living in a nice house in a nice part of town, he could sell his house for $1 million and move to a place for $500,000. Not mechuyev to do that. He could collect tzedakah. He's not mechuyev to sell l'chayra his. Well, let's see. But that's what it seems. No selling the house and no selling klei tashmisha.
I didn't tell you, but a guy texted in to the text. He responded to the text asking you about. I don't know if he texted you also asking you about private jets.
No, I didn't get it. I didn't get that. No.
But he wanted to know if that counted in the.
Okay, so we have to see from this Gemara because I'm not sure. Because the Gemara asks, "Beloi," and you don't have to sell your house or belonging. If somebody's using golden utensils, yishtamash b'kli kesef. You should use silver, meaning downgrade. B'kli kesef, yishtamash b'kli nechayches. If you normally use silver, downgrade to copper. Right. So you see, you do have to downgrade your lifestyle. So Gemara was
See,
like
why
kasha.
can't you just say very simple? I don't even know what's the Gemara's kasha. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that you. It doesn't say that you don't have to downgrade to different. The first Mishnah doesn't say you don't have to downgrade. It just says you don't have to sell it. If you have the cheapest stuff, you don't have to sell them. Why is it mashing from the Mishnah that you have
the Gemara is not learning like that?
I don't understand. Like, why can't you split? Split it in half. Say it means if you have nothing else and this is the only dishes you have and these are the cheapest dishes.
No, okay, you asked some good questions. So if you look at the Rashi says this is all Gemara Mishnayos and Peah. So in Peah it says that if somebody doesn't have 200 zuz, which is a decent amount of money, he's considered an ani. Right? If you have less than 200 zuz, I'm sorry, if what I just said, if you have more than 200 zuz, you're not an ani. Less than 200 zuz, you are an ani. Right? So let's say the guy has 199 zuz. Right? It's the Rashi right at the top of the thin lines. Right? So if you have 199 zuz, and you have a watch that's worth 10 grand, and you could sell it for 10 grand and buy yourself a watch for 9 grand, and you can be mashlim yourself up to 200 zuz. Now you don't have to take tzedaka. Are you mechuyev to do that or not? Right? So you're not mechuyev. You are not mechuyev to do that. That's what the Gemara is saying. It's not shot that you're selling to pay for your stuff. That for sure. I don't think the Gemara, the way I'm understanding it, I don't think the Gemara has a havamina that you have to sell your house, all your utensils before collecting tzedakah. What you have is you have. But to sell it so that you are under the threshold for accepting tzedakah, maybe you would be mechuyev to do that. Right? So the Gemara answers, I'm like kasha haba mita b'shulchan. Was talking about a guy's bed and his table.
Yaakov.
Yeah.
The balabas I worked for years ago, who was nifta relatively young. So there was a fellow Moshe Sklosh who lived well in Chabatska. So every year Moshe would tell him the most that he could pay him in salary. He didn't get a big salary, but the most he could pay him so he'd still be eligible for all the programs.
Yeah.
Food stamps, Medicaid, Section 8, also. He said, Moshe, I want to give you. He said, no, Joe, don't give me a raise. Just give me $187. That's the most you can give me a week, and I'm good to go. I'll make another $25,000.
It's smart. It's a smart. Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly what the Gemara is saying to do. He'll lose more. They'll lose more the other way around, right? Anyways, so we're saying that the difference is a mita and shulchan kaisus hakoras. By mita and shulchan, okay, so you get a different table, but your cups and your plates, that people are germs, so you're not mechuyev to. So Gemara asks, Mishna kaisus hakoras the loy damer meisili. He's going to say it's disgusting for me to use somebody else's mita v'shulchan nami. Amar loy makabel lavai. It's not makabel on me to take. I need my bed. Everybody's got their bed. I don't know what the Gemara's havamina was. I think people are more connected nowadays to their bed than they are to their utensils. But okay. We're talking about a silver plow. Talk about a wealthy guy. We're talking about a guy who has this plow that's made out of silver. So that nobody needs a plow that's made out of silver. So if that's the case, he would have to sell it. One is talking about when you're in foreclosure. Gibui means from the word collecting, right? Before you're in gibui, so then you're not mechuyev to sell anything. But after you're in gibui, right? Then already you'd be mechuyev to, right?
Icky. Icky there?
Yeah.
Icky. That isn't this the Machlokes, the Sansa and the Rishna?
You're putting me on the spot, Aaron. I can't say I'm neither at Sansa nor original. Aaron.
Okay, fine.
Okay, I don't know what he's talking about either, but is it quick to be masbid or not?
The Rishna went around like a mamisha prince. He had chariots and he had an unbelievable house and he made the simchas for his children. Fantastic, unbelievable. And the mice is the Sansa used to fight with him all the time. But they said when he walked, he had these beautiful shtiblach, the original. But they looked, he had blood was coming out of his feet. He didn't have soles to his boots. As Zuckman, he had this everything ostentatious. Like he wanted it so people should have covered a Torah. And the Sansa didn't like it too much. They had mamish a major war.
So okay. Yeah, that's okay. There are still some Hasidus that try and be a little, some to be poor. But anyway, so what's the teretz? Because I would think the opposite, right? If you're in foreclosure, then you shouldn't have to sell your stuff. And if you're not in foreclosure, you should have to, right? So it's saying, no, if you're in foreclosure, then you do have to sell your utensils. So pshat in foreclosure here doesn't mean that's why it's a bad way to translate foreclosure. Foreclosure doesn't mean you're in foreclosure because you have no money to pay back your debt. Foreclosure here means that the guy scammed the system. He really had 200 zuz, so he wasn't allowed to take tzedaka. He took it anyway. So Bezdin got wind of it and chopped him and said, hey, we're going to take back all our money. So if that's the case, then he has to sell because he was never entitled to take tzedaka in the first place. So that's what it means here for foreclosure. Okay, let's see, by to the Mishna. That's the Geshmaka part of the daf. The rest of the daf gets a little bit technical with finances and all that. So it's the Mishna. So you have an orphan, female, right? And her mother marries her off, or her brothers marry her off, and midaita, meaning she agrees to get married. The kosvul of b'chamishim zuz, and they were cheap on her, so they wrote that she can go in with either 100 zuz or 50 zuz, right? So this is talking about when she's a ketana. When she gets older, and she can go tying on them. Hey, I want a nadin that's proper. Masharoi linasinla. What's roi for her to be given, which Rashi says is Isser Nechasim a tenth of the Yerusha, whatever the father left over, is what she's entitled to. Right? So, but she was masking to take the original. She was a katana. When she's a katana, it's meaningless what a katana says. So once she gets older, she can come back and she can have full kindness that she wants her 10%. Yehuda Aimer, in Hisias Abasa Rishayna, let's say the father married off the first daughter. Then he died. So we know how much money he gave to the first daughter. So you don't want to make jealous. So you give the second daughter the same amount of money that the first daughter got, because it's fairly easy to figure out how much the father gave. I mean, I'm assuming you take inflation into account here. Right? So whatever amount of money he gave to the first girl, so we can assume he gave it to the second girl also. Chachamim disagree. Sometimes a person is poor and he becomes wealthy. Or he becomes or he's wealthy and then he becomes poor. So maybe he wouldn't give the same amount. Maybe his finances changed. Ella shamanis and nechasim. What you do is you evaluate the nechasim v'noisim la and you give it to her. You give her whatever it is that you're supposed to give. Right? Which we're going to see in the Gemara exactly how much that is. Yeah. So again, the Mishnah is saying that if she gets a small nadin, when she becomes a gadol, she could kind of for it. And then we have a Machlokes Tanoim, how we evaluate how much money we give to the second daughter when the father was alive by the first daughter. Right? Rabbi Yehuda says that you give her the second daughter the same amount of money as the first daughter, and the Chachamim say that you give. The Chachamim say no, you have to just figure out exactly how much it's worth, and then you give it, which we'll see in the Gemara exactly what that is. So the Gemara Amar Shmuel, the Parnasa Shaman Ba'av, for Parnasa, right? Parnasa is another word for the nadin, for the dowry. Then what you do is you evaluate the father. Right? You try and figure out how much would the father want to give to the daughter. Yeah. Meaning Rashi says if he's generous or if he's cheap. If we evaluate that the father's a cheap guy, then we give the daughter less. If we evaluate that he's a generous guy, then we give the daughter more. That's what Shmuel says. So Meisvei, Habanas, Mizainas, and Misparnas is the daughters get supported from the father's belongings. Ketzad, how does that work? We don't say Ilu Avia Kayim Kach V'Kach. We don't say if the father would be alive, this is how much he would give. We evaluate how much his portfolio is worth, and you give in a ratio to that. My love, parnasas abal. What are we evaluating here? Aren't we talking about we're evaluating how much we're going to give for the parnasa of the husband, meaning for the nadin, for the dowry. So you see that you don't evaluate with what the father would want to give. You evaluate with how much his portfolio is worth. So it means to support the daughter. We're not talking about supporting the husband. We're talking about supporting the daughter. So that we figure out how much his worth. But for the nadin, we go with whether the father is a cheap guy or not a cheap guy. So when I ask, it says in the Brisa to feed and to be mafarnas. My love, achas panosas abal. One is talking about being mafarnas the husband with the nadin, achas panosas atma, and one is talking about being mafarnas herself. So the Gemara says, "Loi idim panosas atma." They're both talking about feeding her. One is talking about eating and drinking, and one is talking about clothing and clothing. That's right. Clothing and for beds and stuff like that. What linen? Yeah. So meaning we need to teach it twice, because you would think that maybe only eating and drinking, but not the clothing. So we're saying no, everything gets evaluated with how much his estate is worth. The Gemara says, the Gemara asks, right, in our Mishna, it says that sometimes a person is poor and he becomes rich, or is rich and he becomes poor. You evaluate how much his nechasim are worth and how much his belongings are, and you give her. So So what does the Mishnah mean when he means he's poor or he's rich? If you say ani means that he just doesn't have any belongings, and assur b'nechasim, and when it says he's wealthy, it means he's wealthy with nechasim. Afilu assur v'heni, even if he's rich and he became poor. Right? So we're going to give it the same way as the first. We make from the beginning, like the first daughter. Right? I'm sorry, he doesn't have. Meaning, if he was rich and now he's poor, and you say, oh, he's got to give a nod in the way he gave to the first daughter. How can that be? He doesn't have the money. How can you make him do that? Elalav, ani bedas. So it must be that ani means he became ani in his das. Right? In his das, he became cheap. He was rich. He was a what do you call it? He was generous.
Magnanimous.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know. I can't say I was thinking about that word, right? But he was generous, and then he became a cheapskate. Assur bedas, and rich means he was rich in the das. We evaluate the nechasim and we give it to her. Alma, we don't go with an evaluation. The Shmuel, and it's a kasha on Shmuel. So you see that Shmuel has a kasha from the Tanakama. It has to be that the Chachamim say that you go with an evaluation of what the guy you don't go with the evaluation. You go with what his money is right then and there, not with what he would give. So it's a kasha on Shmuel. Again, Shmuel had said that you go with what you think the father would give. So when I answer, no, Shmuel goes like Rabbi Yehuda, not like the Chachamim. We're bringing a kasha from the bishop from the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the Chachamim. Right? So Rabbi Yehuda, the Tan of Yehuda, and Hissi Basa Rishina. If he married off his first daughter, you're not in the Shnia. He has to give to the second daughter the same way he gives to the first. So Shmuel is going like Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara says, the name Allah Rabbi Yehuda. So why didn't he just say that Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda? Why is he saying that we go with the evaluation of what the father wanted to say?
But didn't the Gemara say before that it's lav dafka what Rabbi Yehuda means, or what that Mishna means?
What do you mean?
Before it had a shirka. The Gemara said that's totally in whether we see him as a rich person or a poor person. If he changed. Oh, you're saying that's a hagu for okay, I forget it. Okay.
But okay, so that anyway. So why did he just say love is like Rabbi Yehuda? So my answer, the Yomer love Rabbi Yehuda. Have I mean the tafka hisia the goli daite. That's tafka if he married her off, so we know what he gave. But you would think, but if he never married her off, so then maybe we don't try and figure out what he's giving. what he would give. Kamash Malan, time of the Rabbi Yehuda, does in a passer umdana. So then that's what Yehuda says, that we go with an evaluation. Loishna Hasiya, but Loishna Loyasi. It doesn't make a difference if the father married off an older daughter or didn't. We just evaluate, according to Rabbi Yehuda, we evaluate the way it goes. So why are you saying Yasiya? Meaning, if you're saying you always just evaluate, so then why do you care if he married off a daughter or not? So the idea, so why are you saying that for? So we're saying, no, we're saying it for the Rabanan. The idea of the koyach of the Rabanan, it's coming to tell us the koyach of the Rabanan. The Rabanan hold that you never go with an evaluation. He says, even though he married off an older daughter, which he was megala his das, he revealed to us and he told us what, he clearly showed us what it is that he'd give. So we don't go with an evaluation. Okay, so therefore Shmuel the Maisa holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Mishma halacha Rabbi Yehuda. We dashen in your name. Halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda. So Amalei said to him, "Yeh Rava, it should be that kol kihani mili ma'ali satiru shu mishmoy. If you're talking, going to say such nice things, good things that I'm saying in my name, meaning if you're going to say such good things, Allah is like Rabbi Yehuda in my name, I'll take it." That's basically what he's saying. Gemara says, "Did Rava really say that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda?" Vatanya Rebbe Omer. If you have a daughter that's getting fed from her brothers, right? If the father died, the brothers yashin the father, and they're taking care of their sister. So Netelas Isur Nechasim, she takes a tenth. This is our first straight out source that she takes a tenth. The Gemara just seems to adopt this as that's the standard. The daughter takes a tenth, right? And Rashi says we don't evaluate with the father. Meaning standard practice is a Yisaima gets 10% when she gets married. Finished. If the guy's a billionaire, so she gets $100 million. If he has $10,000, she gets $1,000. And Rava says, Hilchas a Karebi, the halacha is like Rebbe. So you see that we do a straight evaluation. It's not like Rabbi Yehuda. So like Kasha, Hamda Amdene, Hadalai Amdene. When Rabbi Yehuda is saying that it depends on the father, what the father says, that's when we go that's when we already evaluated the father. But where for some reason they weren't able to evaluate the father, meaning the father he ran away from home, or he was always on business trips, so nobody knew him to evaluate him. Then Rebbe says 10%. So Gemara says, "Achanayim Mustavar, Damar Ravada Barava Ma'aser B'Nasan LeRebbe Echad Mishneim Assur B'Nechasim." One time Rebbe gave a 12th, not a 10th, a 12th of the Nechasim. So how did Rebbe do that? Rebbe said 10%. Kashin Adadi, it's a kash on each other. One is talking about where it was evaluated, one is talking about where it was not evaluated. I mean, again, if you're able to evaluate the husband and figure out the father and see how much he would give, so then you go with that. Otherwise, it's 10%. So it seems like, at least from Muhammad Bays, we'll see that it was just adopted as 10%, that you just give 10%. Fine. Ufa Amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, if you have a daughter who is being fed by the brothers, meaning the brothers are very nice and they're feeding their sister. So Netelas Isur Nechasim, when she gets married, she takes a tenth of the money from her brothers. So they told Rebbe, according to you, right? This is one of these Lamda Shakashas. According to you, so again, Rebbe says that she takes 10%. So according to you, Mishiyesha Esser Bonus Uben. Let's say a guy has 10 girls and a son. So the son gets nothing. Why? Because each daughter takes 10%. So if you have 10 daughters each one taking 10%, that's 100%. And the son is left out in the cold. Right? According to Rebbe, that's the way it should go down. So he says, this is what I say. The first daughter takes 10%. Shniya, the second one takes 10% of what's left. Right? So the first, let's say there was $10,000. So the first daughter gets 1,000. The second daughter gets 900. right? Shlishis, the Masha Shire. The Shlishis will get 800. Yeah, whatever that's that. So that's going down like that. But then what do you do? And then they all put their money into the pot, and then they divide it by 10. Right. So I don't know exactly the numbers. Akiva, this is your department, right? So again, you started off with 100%.
I cheated. It says 65%.
Yeah, it comes out the daughters get just under 65%, and the son gets 35%.
Okay, so there you go. So that's 65 to 35. Right, makes a big difference. So Gemara asks, Anton Beis now, meaning why you have to put it back into the pot? Each one took their 10%. Yes, obviously the younger kids got a lot less percent than the older kids, but each one got their 10%. Why do they have to give it back into the pot? So the Gemara says, if they're all getting married at the same time, then chalkas b'shava, then they what they do is they put it all back into the pot and resplit it. But if they're getting married at different times, then anachanami, each one gets their 10%. Right? You can see why the guy died if you got all 10 girls getting married at the same time. Right? But yeah. So anyway, but that's the way to split it. If they all come to get married at the same time, they take 1/10. Do you really mean to say that each one takes 1/10? Then, like we said, then there's going to be nothing left for the boy. They take a 10 together, meaning they take, each one takes their 10 and then they put it back into the pot and then they resplit it. Fine. Now the Gemara goes weiter and what are you going to do when the father's nifter? Exactly how much money are you giving the daughter? So Tana Rabanan. Abana is the daughters, Bain Bagru Achalei Nisu, whether she became a Begeris. Again, you have a katana up until 12. Then you have a naira from 12 to 12 and a half. And then she becomes a Begeris as a full-fledged adult. So once she's an adult, nobody has to support her anymore. Right? She's done. She's an adult. Really from naira. But whether they became 12 and a half before they got married, or whether they got married before they became a begeris, Ibn Mizan is saying they lose their food. They don't have to be fed anymore because once she's 12 and a half, or once she gets married, she's out of her father's estate. But they won't lose the nadim, the dowry. Right? We said that's what a parnos is. So again, according to the Tanakama, she stops getting fed, but she still gets her dowry. Divrei Rebbe. Shmuel Lazar disagrees. Shmuel Lazar Aimer af ivdu parnasasam. She also loses the dowry. Right? So Ketzad Heinoisis. So what did they do? Now this is a Yiddish couple. So they're about to become begeris. Right? She's about to become a begeris. She's not married. She couldn't find a shidduch. So she's going to lose her nadim. Because we're saying once she hits begeris, according to Rav Shimon ben Elazar, she's out. So they go to rent a husband, right? They rent themselves a husband, and they take their 10% dowry. I guess
you get a green card.
Basically, right? Basically, they hire this guy, and that's it. They hire a guy to be the husband, give him a few dollars. Now they can keep the nadim. So Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Li Huna Hilchasa Karebi. Huna said that it's interesting that he called him Huna. Comes up in tomorrow's daf. Huna Hilchasa Karebi. The halacha is like Rebbe, where she gets her dowry, she doesn't get her money. So Eisve Rav Nachman. The Rabbi asked the Kasha Rav Nachman, Yisayma Shesiyah, say Ima Ayachia Mitaita from our Mishna. You have a Yisayma that her mother or her brothers married her off with her knowledge. Because and they were cheap on her, and they only gave her 100 zuz or 50 zuz. When she grows up, she can ask for her full money. What was right to be given to her? What's the reason to katana? The only reason is, why is she not losing it totally when she's a gadol? We just got finished saying, according to Rebbe at least, that she gets to keep it. So we're saying, but the only reason why is because she agreed to get married when she was katana, hagedola, vitra. But if she got married when she's a gedola, she does not get her dowry. So that's a kasha on Rebbe and a proof to Rav Shimon Elazar. So the Gemara answers like kasha, hada machai, hada loy machai. One is talking about where she made a macha, and one is talking about where she didn't make a macha. When she made a macha before she turned Begeras, so before she got married, and she said, by the way, I'm not Michael on my nadin, so then you have to give it to her. But if she just kept quiet, that means that she shows that she's Michael. The Gemara says, that makes sense. The Imkain, kasha de Rebbe ad Rebbe. Because then we have a steer from Rebbe to Rebbe. Titania, Rebbe Yomer, Basan is on his Menach, and you have a daughter who's getting fed from her brothers. Like tell us Isur Nechasim. She gets to take a tenth of the father's belongings. The Zionist in Mashma only if she's being fed. Shein and Zionist life, but if she's not being fed, she doesn't get to keep the 10%. It has to be that the difference is one is where she makes a complaint that says she wants her dowry money, and one is telling where she makes a complaint that she does that and she doesn't get it. Fine. So Amalei Ravina the Rava. So Ravina said to Rava, Amar Lon Rav Ada bar Abba Mishmecha. Rav Ada bar Abba said in your name, Bagra Eina Tzricha Limchais. If she became a Begeres, she does not need to make a macha. Right? Meaning she gets the 10% even if she becomes a Begeres and she didn't say anything. Nisis, but if she got married, she doesn't have to get married. But if the Nisis, if she gets married, she also doesn't need to make a macha. Right? Meaning she still gets the nadin. But Bagra of a Nisis, but if she becomes 12 and a half, and then she gets married, then then she needs to. Meaning each one individually, she doesn't have to say, hey, by the way, I want my nadin money. Right? Meaning we said according to Shmuel Elazar, she loses her nadin money. Right? Means that 12 and a half, she's stuck. So here we're saying, no, she's not stuck. As long as she doesn't have to say anything even. She gets to keep her nadin money. But if she becomes over 12 and a half and she doesn't ask for her dowry money, her nadin money, then she's out. So the Gemara says, Mi Omar Rava, Hachi, did Rava really say this? But Esvei Rava the Rav Nachman, Rava asked the Kasha Rav Nachman, Yisaima, if you have a Yisaima, right? Meaning Yisaima, I'm sorry, he was asking from our Mishna of Yisaima, right? Where we said like Rebbe that she gets the dowry. The Shani Lane, he answered, Hadamachi, Hadalaimachi. One is talking about where there was a macha, and one was talking about there was no macha. So you see that she does, a naira at least has to make a macha. And you just said before they don't have to make a macha. Like Kasha, Hadakam Mitzana Minayu, one is talking about where she's being fed by the brothers. Right? So if she's being fed by the brothers, she doesn't have to say anything. The assumption is she's being fed by the brothers. The brothers are going to give her the dowry also. Right? But where the brothers are not feeding her, they let her go up on her own, then she has to speak up if she wants to keep her dowry money. Fine. Next. Amar Afuna. Amar Rebbe. Parnasa ain't a Tnai Ksuba. Parnasa is not like a Tnai in the Ksuba. Meaning we know that there's certain Tnaim in the Ksuba, right? Which is that he has to give her 200 for a basula, and if she dies, he has to support the kids, etc., etc. But the Nadin is not part of the Ksuba. Now, what's the difference? Right? My ain't a Tnai Ksuba. What does that mean? It's not one of the Tnaim in the Ksuba. Parnasa. If you're going to say that Parnasa is not part of the Ksuba, and therefore, if they had sold their properties to somebody else, he can go collect his nadin from those properties, right? The Tanai Ksuba, loy tarfa, but the Tanai Ksuba, you're not allowed to. It was a takana that you're not allowed to collect the Tanai Ksuba from somebody's properties. Because what's one of the Tanai of Ksuba? One of the Tanai of Ksuba is that you have to feed the kids, the wife's kids, forever. So that could be an unlimited amount of money. So nobody's going to want to buy a field from somebody if they know that he has kids, because you have no idea if they're going to come back, take your field from you in 20 years. You finish developing the field, 20 years later, they come and say, oh, by the way, we need that field to feed this guy's kids. So since it's an unlimited amount of money that could be lost, therefore the Chacham made a takana that any Tanai Ksuba cannot go collect from liens on it's not really liens, but from houses. So The Gemara, when the Gemara says that parnasa, the dowry, is not part of the Tanai Ksuba, so maybe that's what it means. So the Gemara says, "My kamasha, what's the chiddush? Hamaisim b'chol yoyim, maitzin leparnasa." We know that you take for a girl who's an orphan. All the time they go back to the people that bought the properties and say, "Hey, we need this property. We'll give you back your money, but we need the property for to feed to give the dowry." But we don't go back and take the properties from the zaynis. Ella, so what must it be? Parnasa, parnasa, meaning the dowry, you can even collect from his metaltalin, meaning the guy that died left over a watch and some pens and some this and that, so then you'd be able to take that for the dowry. Utnai ksuba mikarkoi, and the Tanai Ksuba, you can actually take land and only take land, and it doesn't take a metaltalin, right? So that can't be either. Why? Because Rebbe's the one who said this. Rebbe holds that you're allowed to collect from the Tanai Ksuba from both karka and from metaltalin. The Tanya, echad nechasim sheyesh lan achrayis, echad nechasim she'en lan achrayis. Whether we're talking about nechasim that have achrayis, which that's just a code word for metaltalin, meaning nobody takes a loan based on a watch usually, unless it's a pawn shop. But most normal loans only go with karka because metaltalin, you never know, the guy could run away with it. There's nothing secure about it, right? So we take both out in order to feed the wife and the kids. The Rebbe. So you see the Rebbe holds that you can.
You're going to see serious metaltalin now after they bury Queen Elizabeth. You'll see some serious metaltalin showing up.
Grada is a guy, I actually got a shaila today of seeing the king and making the bracha. A guy is in England, and he said he saw the king, and he wants to know if he should do it again the next day. So he's got box seats. He just said he can't get into his hotel. Other than that, he's so that would be so Elamai. So that doesn't mean that the Tanai Ksuba parnasa, the dowry, is not part of Tanai Ksuba. Elamai parnasa ain't a Tanai Ksuba. What does it mean that the dowry is not part of the Tanai Ksuba? Look at the Tanya. So let's say somebody says, "Do not," when the guy's dying, "don't feed my kids from my belongings." Ain't Shemila, we don't listen to him, right? Because he's mechuyev to do it as part of the Ksuba. But he said, don't be mefarnas, meaning don't use as a dowry, shayman like that. You do listen to him. Shaparnasa ain't a Tanai Ksuba. Parnasa not part of Tanai Ksuba. I mean, again, guy's dying. He's telling everybody what to do with his money. He says, don't feed my kids. We don't listen to him. When he signed his Ksuba, he said, I'm going to feed the kids. You can't go make Tanaim against something that you agreed to. But dowry is not part of the Ksuba. So that if he says, I don't want them to be fed, so then I don't want them to be fed. That you do listen to. So that's what it means that the Tanai Parnasa is not part of the Tanai Ksuba. Okay, let's stop over here. All right. I hope that was handled a little
right
bit.
on that. Yaakov. See if we can make to 9:30.
I'm running. I think I missed Baruch already, but yeah. Good to see you in the daylight, Gershon.
I'm sitting in your seat. You're going to be Thursday night.
Bez Hashem.